So, this is a very different to anything else that I normally do. I've discussed something before, but last time I had gameplay going on in the background. I had a Power Wash Simulator 2, and that was in regards to my thoughts on the situation with Yakuza Kiwami 3 as someone who was a fan of the Yakuza series and my problems I had with it. I wasn't sure what to do in regards to this. At first, I thought, is this something I just discuss on stream? Though my motivation to stream today, on this is the day everything was announced, it was killed because of this. My motivation to do anything on the PlayStation was killed because of this. I barely want to look at the thing. uh, yeah, so I thought, you know what, I'll talk about it. And because it's serious, and well, I find it serious, and is about it, I thought having just me talking over gameplay wasn't right. I thought best thing, sit here, discuss it. As a stream of consciousness, talk about it, get it out there as someone who has been playing video games most of my life. I played them back in the PlayStation 1 era. I was very young. I didn't know what I was doing. It's something my dad owned. But I remember playing those old little green army men games or Simpsons wrestling, So I have memories of it that have been my whole life basically. For anyone who doesn't know, if you're under a rock, Sony announced today. It is Thursday, the 2nd of July. It's probably the Wednesday the 1st in America, where it happened, where for them, this is Australia. That by 2028, they will cease all production of discs for console games, specifically PlayStation console games, of course. And there has been backlash, as is rightful, and that's what I'm here to discuss. Because alongside the backlash, there have also been people saying, "What's it matter? It doesn't affect me. I don't buy digital. I don't buy physical. I only buy digital. This doesn't affect me. What's the harm? Is this not the future? Yada yada yada." And so I wanted to explain why this is bad to the best as I can. Now, I am by no means an expert. I'm just some idiot who streams and puts shit on YouTube and whatever. But I still wanted to discuss why removal of physical media in any form, especially in video games, is a bad decision. I apologize, I'm trying to make this room colder. It's just I was doing stuff, so if there's a noise in the background, I apologize. There's a fan on. Like I said, normally I don't sit here in front of the camera and just talk. Normally, I'm streaming. Normally I'm on the small screen. I'm pointing at it as if it's there. It's there. There. There it is. Normally it's there, and then, I'm in that. I'm doing that because when I look at the screen, it's the right. Normally it's I'm then there, and everything else is on this screen once everything starts. So, trying to find where to begin to discuss the issue is hard. But I think the best place is to start at the announcement. The part that I think not as many people noticed in the announcement. Because when they announced it, they put it on Twitter, that's where I saw it. There was two announcements they made at the same time. And the second one, when in line with the first, is where things are very strange. See, the first one was, of course, them saying that by 2028, they will cease all disc production. So any game, any future title for the PlayStation will only be released digital from 2028 onwards. Up until then, most games, for that regard, will probably cease doing digital physical releases in anticipation for it. And I would imagine most Sony first party titles would also only be released digitally in the lead up to it as a method of getting people prepared for it. The problem with this, of course, many, but the first one is that what they also announced this same day. They announced that by January of 2027, well, starting around 2027, I believe January is when it starts, the PlayStation 3's online store and the PS Vita online store will be shut down, effectively making any digital purchase on the PlayStation 3 impossible. Now, to announce this, the very same time that you're announcing that in the future you can only buy things digitally, is either completely tone deaf or a purposeful ploy to give you the finger. Because there is no reason to do that. In fact, there's no logical reason to do that. Any person would look you in the eye if you said that you were doing this and tell you that's a really dumb thing to do at the same time. Because, well, obviously, if you don't see the reason, it's because they're basically saying you have to do this digitally, but we can then eventually decide that the digital doesn't exist and you can't do it anymore. Now, some people might take the argument PlayStation 3, it's only 20 years old. Probably is, actually. I don't remember when it came out. I didn't get it. I started in that generation of consoles in the Xbox 360 era. I'll be talking about that a bit. I changed over to PS3 and PS4 around year 8. I was about 14, and then sort of moved over to PlayStation. There's reasons for that that don't matter to here. It involved the fact that most of my friends had PlayStation. I was the only one with Xbox, so I sort of changed over to that as a way to do some stuff with them on the same console. Sorry, just having some water. Editing is not my skill point, so this is going to be just completely here. Unless for some reason I have to go in and, like, and move in case I have to stop, like if I need to get up and check on my cat. Otherwise, this is just complete stream of consciousness. Now, to go back to the PS3 thing. Yeah, 20 years ago, roughly, I think. I don't know if 2006 was the year. I want to say it was probably more closer to 2009, but that might be too late as well. So I don't know for certain with the PlayStation 3. And it had a lot of problems at its launch as well. You know, it had problems with it cost a lot. Sony was ambitious by making it both a Blu-ray player, which is Blu-ray was quite new, to include a Blu-ray player in the console. That pushed the price up a lot. But over time, it did go down in price, something we have not seen happen with the PlayStation 5, which has only gone up in price. Anything I say when I reference as well the PlayStation 5, this also does apply to the Xbox Series X/Series S. I am more specifically talking about PlayStation here. But same things do apply to Xbox. Now, yeah, 20 years ago, you know, most people, you might think, oh yeah, 20 years old, what's the point? Yeah, if it's gone, it's gone. But by deleting it, you delete anything that is on there that is available. There are some things that might only be available on the digital marketplace for PlayStation 3. And if it's not, and people want them and they have to get it physically, that's going to cost them money. Let me show you an example of that. When I started getting into the Yakuza franchise, I started at 0. And that is easily available on the PlayStation 4, as were the next 2 titles, Kiwami 1 and 2, which were also easily available on the PlayStation 4, as they were remakes of the originals. But if you wanted to play the newer ones, you were in a bit of trouble. Until they got remastered a few years ago, they were only available on the PS3. Now, I don't know for certain if they were available on PC at the time. They might have been, but I don't believe they were. They are now, and that's a whole other can of beans, with them only including Yakuza 3 in the bundle with 4 and 5 now, after delisting it with the remake of 3. But if you wanted to play 3, 4, and 5, you had to have a PS3. Not only that, but only games 4 and 5 were available digitally. Now, I was lucky. I was able to find a copy. It was at a CEX, one close by to me, secondhand. But, for that reason, it cost me $40. That's roughly almost what this game probably would have cost at launch. I don't see. I don't know for certain what the cost of Yakuza 3 was at launch. It might have been 60. But a game like this, secondhand, at that price, it's not unheard of. But supply and demand, of course, affects the price even of pre-owned games. If a game's have is everywhere and there's a lot of it and there's lots of demand and little supply, it usually doesn't cost much. It doesn't take much to go to a secondhand store and look at the games there, and you'll see the ones that are they always have so many of that they will sell for like pocket change. They sell for very little. But something like this, like Yakuza 3, it was at the time. Well, I mean, it had its issues. It still does. This copy, this version of Yakuza 3, lots of problems. And but if you wanted to get into the series, the only way you could was to try and get this copy. And the people who had it, very few were selling it. And if they were, because if there was any supply, and the supply was limited, well, if there was any demand, the demand was limited, and the supply was limited, so they could make it whatever they wanted. $40 is a bit to spend on something like this. A pre-owned PS3 game. That's a bit. That's definitely more than you might think for most pre-owned PS3 titles. And this wasn't like a few years ago. This was not long. I bought this not long before the PS5 came out. This had been long after the PS3 and near the end of the PS4's run. So, yeah. Now you might think, what does that have to do with anything? Well, again, my point is that this title for the PS3 is only available physically. So, you have to have a physical version of it. Digital versions didn't exist. Now, of course, you might say, oh, well, that doesn't matter anymore. There's the remasters, yes, but that in itself is its whole other can of beans about the remake, as I said. But the point is that if you want any old PS3 titles now, once the store's shut down, your only option will be to get them physically. And people are going to hold on to them. Why would they get rid of them? They're not going to be able to buy them. I only recently, within the past year, I went and I actually purchased something digitally on the PS3, and it is a pain to do now. They made it really hard. They tried to shut it down before, they got backlash, they pulled back on it, but they still made it difficult. You have to basically put funds into your PlayStation wallet, then you have to disconnect your account from the PS3 to purchase it using those funds. Otherwise, it tries to take from your card, and it's just a whole. It was really confusing. You might ask why I did that. I did it because I wanted to. I wanted to stream all the God of War games. I'd never played most of them. I had only played 3 as I was given it for free. Well, free. I'll get into that. It was for PS Plus, and whether you would consider that free or not, I've always used air quotes because it isn't technically free. You are paying for it. But yes, there is that. And I'd only played 2018 and Ragnarok's. I got 2018's again for free once I got to PS5. There were a number of games for the PS4 that were given for free if you bought a PS5 within a time frame. I think I was right before the cutoff of that. They gave a bunch of PS4 titles, like popular ones, away as a way to basically, encourage people to buy the console that had no games. Famously. Of course, that starts back with the PS3, but it still somewhat applies. And those were the only ones I had played. I'd never really played the originals. And I wanted to do them all in order chronologically. And that is doable, but it has to be done on the PS3. And they had available, of course, the first 2 games, which were originally PS2 titles, on as a remaster thing. They also had the 2 PSP titles, and then there was what was the 5th one called? If you include, oh no, it's technically the 6th one if you include the main 3, and that it was a big prequel to all of them. It was right at the very end of the lifespan, and it didn't do well. And I personally think it was released solely because Sony wanted to put out a demo for The Last of Us and include it on a disc. What was it called again? It wasn't Redemption. I'm thinking So many games use an RE subtitle as a lot of their games. Redemption, Revelations, things like that. So there were 6 of those games. Okay, 5 of them because 3 was on the PS4 as well. So there's 5 of those games that I picked up, and I just got them digitally. And they are physical copies, but I couldn't find any like that. So I was able to get them digitally for pretty cheap. It didn't cost much, which was nice. There's no sales for that, of course. PS3, why would they do sales for it? They were barely supporting it at this point still, and now they're going to shut it down. But yeah, to go back to the point, you could still buy stuff there, but starting soon, it'll be impossible. Anything on that console you cannot get, and that is it's pretty bad. And there was a lot of stuff for there. They're now starting to bring more stuff from that to modern consoles, but even still, there's plenty from the PS3 era that you will not be able to buy or get. And all it takes is someone at Sony shutting everything off. I'll give a personal example of something like that. Now, at the time, I did not blame Sony for this 100%. Technically, and if I am being 1000% honest, it isn't technically their fault, but it works as a good example. And this applies to modern cases of these games. Hotline Miami is a very popular series. There's two of them. Very popular, very violent. It's what it's known for. And infamously, Hotline Miami 2 is banned here in Australia for a pretty stupid reason that I'm not getting into. This isn't a Hotline Miami story video, and this isn't a Australian classification video. This is about, digital games. Now, in 2023, I think it might have been 24, Hotline Miami 1 and 2 were released onto the PS5. They were given a little PS5 upgrade available, and were bundled together. And I saw them available on the store, on the online store. Oh, went I. That's neat. I'm surprised it's available, considering it wasn't allowed. Maybe they changed their mind. Maybe the Classification Bureau, the ACB, had changed their mind on it, and so they allowed it. Let me double check it is the ACB. You know, that doesn't matter. That isn't important. The point is, it was the Board of Classification here in Australia. So I bought them. I bought them both, played them, enjoyed them, had fun with them. And then, almost a year later, I noticed that I did not have access to Hotline Miami 2 anymore. Because it seemed what happened is that someone in the government walked into their job one day and actually paid attention and noticed that they had, it seems accidentally, allowed a game that they had initially banned onto the be available, because I guess they just made a small stuff up somewhere, alright? And they likely sent out a message to Sony and said, hey, this game's not meant to be allowed, remove it from your store, and remove it from people's things. And like that, I suddenly do not have access to a game I paid money for. And again, full transparency, I did get my money back. I saw in my own things that showed that I was refunded this. Now, I'm 90% certain. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go check. I really don't care enough to do so. I'd have to go onto there to look at it. So I will just say that I am almost positive that I was in fact refunded for this. But regardless of whether I was or not, still, by the simple whim of Sony, well, and in regards as well, government classification, I had a product that I had paid for taken from me. Now, you can sit here and argue laws and all that till the cows come home. That's not really the point. Because if you owned, for example, if I owned this game physically, the only way that I could no longer have it would be if someone had come and taken it from me. Would they have done so? Don't know. Probably not. The laws for the laws for banned products and like films and games are very strange in Australia. The way they work is owning it is technically not the crime; it's the selling of it. It's really weird. It's a very, very weird system. But again, this isn't about laws or legal systems. This is about digital ownership. But I like to give that as the example of how I have experienced firsthand this. And I'm not the only one to have. I'm sure other people have as well. In fact, I believe the way that the ACB caught on is because through PlayStation Plus Extra, which is one of the three tiers of their subscription thing, it was available. And that's what I think made the Classification Bureau notice that they had allowed a game through that they technically had banned. Again, I don't know the full story. I don't know what the situation was. Um, and again, all that happened was I had my access to a game that I had paid money for removed. And again, and at the time, and again, as I'm being fully honest, I didn't 100% blame Sony. I put most of the blame at that time on the Classification Bureau, and technically I still do. But the fact that they can both do this is bad. Now, I mentioned how other people have, most famously, the recent example, video game Concord. It lasted not even a month before it was shut down. Anyone who purchased it basically set their own money on fire. I think some people were able to get refunds if they got onto a nice enough employee at Sony, but Sony is all over the place when it comes to refunds. I believe their policy is you can refund a title within 14 days if you have not played it. So if you buy, and this is a digital product, so if you, for example, if you were to buy, let's just throw out there God of War. All right, if you buy God of War, download it onto your console, and it sits there for a week, you don't open it, you never launch it once, and then you decide, you know what, I actually don't want God of War. I bought it, I thought I was going to play it, but it's been a week. I haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm probably not going to, and I don't want it. You contact someone at Sony, and they can see that you haven't launched it. It's been a week, and their policy is you get a refund for it. Don't take me at my word. I could be wrong. This was all the information at the time when a lot of this stuff was happening with other refund stuff. And if you're lucky sometimes, because it literally does depend on who you get in contact with, sometimes they give refunds. That was a situation with Cyberpunk. They originally were giving it was up in the air as to whether you would get refunds for Cyberpunk or not. It depended on who you contacted. Now then after a while they pulled it from the stores and they offered refunds. I don't think they offered refunds for Concord. I'm fairly certain they didn't, but I could be wrong. But I'm almost positive they didn't because I wouldn't expect them to. I'm not. I'm not giving much benefit of the doubt to Sony in any of this. Um, and I know that even and again, it comes down to entirely whether you get onto someone lucky. I've spoken to a friend before when it came to the free PS Plus games. He had a situation where he had bought a game the week earlier, or whatever, been playing it. Next week, it was available for free. He was very annoyed. It's happened to him more than once where that's happened. I said, try contacting someone, see if you can get a refund for it, and you might be able to. It just depends on who you get to. Some people have, some people haven't. And again, it just depends whether you get onto someone at their customer service who can understand the situation and feels like, you know what, I'm going to throw this person a bone and let them refund their title here. Got a little off track. Point is, Concord. People had the similar situation with that. Within a month, the game was shut down. Anyone who purchased it, you no longer had a game that you had bought. You cannot launch it, you cannot download it, you can do nothing with it. You cannot play it. It does not exist. It's almost like it never did. And that was 1 month after its release because it just did not go well. It did very poorly. And we'll come back to Concord. I'll be talking about that more. But that is the example of people that many more people would have felt of a game being taken away from them by Sony digitally. Probably another famous example, PT, for anyone who remembers that. The playable teaser for Silent Hills put out by Konami. I almost said Capcom there. Konami. And this was, of course, meant to be released this was a Silent Hill game that was going to be worked on by Hideo Kojima. This was before his departure from Konami, and then going off and making his own studio. Silent Hills was incredibly anticipated. PT was probably one of the most successful demos of all time. I'd argue it definitely was, and it's just a demo. But everyone was playing it. Everyone was doing it, playing was doing videos on it. Everyone downloaded it. Everyone had it. If you want PT, can't get it. It is not available for download. Konami took it down, and it is gone. And they took it down mostly because Silent Hills was never coming out. But people still were interested in PT, and people have since sold. There have been listings online of people selling a PlayStation 4 with PT downloaded because unless you had it downloaded, you can't access it. If you had it downloaded onto your system, you can still play it, but as soon as you delete it from your storage, it's impossible to download. So that was probably one of the first cases of a game no longer being available. And whether you would want to call PT a game or not, it was just a playable teaser. It's literally what it stood for. It was a very successful one, and one that people still talk about. Years later, almost a decade later, probably is a decade later. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it probably was around 2016. For a demo to have that much staying power is pretty crazy, and you can't play it. It's not available. Similar thing happened to a friend of mine. Delectable Waffle is what she goes by on Twitch. When she started playing the Life is Strange series, she got up to Life is Strange 2 and learned that there was a thing called The Amazing Adventures of Captain Alex, I think it was. It's a demo for Life is Strange 2, and it sort of acted as a little bit of a semi prequel thing, and she wanted to play it. She can't. It doesn't exist. You can't access it. She could not find it and couldn't access it. Now, unless there is a way to that I'm not aware of, but I can't find any way to see that, and she has looked into it and she's never found any way to play it. So there is a piece of media for a franchise she enjoys that she can't get to because it just doesn't exist. That is where the issues with digital purchases live. And when we talk about issues with Sony deleting stuff, you might argue, well, why would they? They only deleted things that didn't do well. Concord was a massive failure. PT's never was going to turn into a full game, and do you really need a little demo for something if the full game's out? Even if it did have a bit of story stuff, does it really matter? Unless it fully connects to it. Maybe it doesn't. But let's use an example of something else that Sony did just recently in regards to digital purchases. Movies. Now, I'm a big movie fan. I did think of having photos of my movie collection, but I decided not to because there's a lot. I do have other photos I will bring up in a second. But I am specifically someone who buys stuff physically for this reason. In the past week, maybe 2 weeks, I don't remember exactly the date, Sony removed from the PlayStation, from the store online, as you've been able to buy movies on there for quite a while. I think back to the PS3 era you could. They removed, I believe it was over 500 movies. I don't have the exact numbers. Most of what I've seen said 500 plus. I feel like that is a lot. I feel like it might be less, but I do not know the exact number. But that is the number I have seen repeated. So take this with a grain of salt as to how much it actually was. Regardless, they removed this many because their licensing deal with Studio Canal ended. Anyone who purchased a movie no longer has access to something they have purchased. And, to the best of my knowledge, that is now a sunken cost for them. Something they paid money for, and in theory would have a right to own, they do not have anymore, all because the parent company doesn't have it any further. Let me put this into a bit of a scenario for you in that regard. I have two films here. One of them, both Japanese. One of them is Battle Royale. Pretty famous film. Most people have heard of it. The other is another well-known film, Suicide Club. Now, what do these have to do with anything in regards to film? Years ago, Suicide Club was licensed here in Australia, and I think maybe other places as well, by Madman Entertainment. Battle Royale was the same. Now, I do not know if Battle Royale is anymore. It may be. But Suicide Club isn't. It is now licensed by Umbrella Entertainment. In fact, let me just... You know what? I don't need to. I'm sticking with my point. If I end up being wrong in that regard, I apologize. But I am almost positive that Suicide Club used to be with Madman, because it was only recently re-released by Umbrella Entertainment. Now, the reason I bring up Battle Royale is because I do not know for certain if it still is. I would have to check, and I'm not. But say that in the past I had bought Suicide Club back when it was licensed by Madman. And if I pick up this one here, you can see on the back of it Madman's logo. This is Battle Royale still. If I had bought Suicide Club from Madman and the licensing ran out, what has happened with Sony, it would be the equivalent if after the licensing ran out, Madman sent people to my home to take my copy of a film that I had purchased away simply because they no longer had the rights for releasing it. That'd be stupid. I don't know, and again, I do not know for certain if Battle Royale is still with Madman, but that's why I bring it up. If it isn't, I still have it, even though I bought it when it was licensed by Madman, because I own it. It's in my hands. I can open it up whenever I want, take it out, and put it into a DVD player anytime I want, because I own it. It's in front of me. If I owned it digitally and it ran out like that, it's gone, and however much I paid for it is also gone, and there is no chance of me getting that back, because who am I going to complain to? PlayStation? They'll probably have some clause in there that says I don't own it and I'm just licensing it. In fact, they do. That's what's happened recently with so many digital games. They've started at it. I think Ubisoft were one of the first to start saying this, to start saying that you do not own your games when you buy them digitally. You're buying a license to it. And that license can be removed if they decide that you've done something naughty, or if you've done something they don't like. Take, for example, your PlayStation account. If it gets banned, you've lost access to anything that you've bought. Now, one person might use the argument that many people do when it comes to doing something wrong. Don't do anything wrong and you're fine. That's cool, but what's considered right and wrong? That's different for some people. Some people might consider friendly banter and ribbing amongst people online to that, like, maybe being a bit crass and calling each other names might be considered okay. But some people might hear that and think, well, that's not right, and report you. Even though you're just doing it amongst friends, and yeah. Again, merely an example. But there are other cases that could be like that. If you lose access to your account for any reason, you have lost everything. How are you going to get it back? How are you going to get your money back? What are you going to do? Make a claim? I don't have access to all the stuff I bought. Well, what are they going to do? Why would they care? They have no reason to. So I'm going to go put this back. Take a moment as well to collect my thoughts for a second, so I know where to go next with what I'm discussing. Like I said, I am stream of consciousnessing. That is a hard word to say. This whole thing, and I don't want to go off on a complete unrelated tangent, which I am likely to do. It happens all the time. let's talk a bit more about physical games and just with with having them and having digital games. Now, I'll be 100% honest. I bought games digitally. Of course, I have. Everyone has. I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to sit here and say I have never once bought a game digitally. I absolutely have. But I also have plenty of games that I have bought physical for every console. For example, these are, well, most of what I have for the PS3. The only one not present there is one that I have got downstairs for where my PS3 is, because it's one I was playing in the evenings. That was Fallout New Vegas, because I was trying to work my way towards that platinum. Some of these I have bought because, well, most of them I bought because I wanted them as one to either platinum or earn more trophies. I like getting platinum trophies. It's something I like to do. It is something I have done a lot, and I have bought games specifically with the intention to platinum them. There's quite a few Lego games in this list here. Um, you can't see all. It might be hard to see. I'm not going to make it bigger, but in here, like you've got Lego Star Wars 3, Lego Indiana Jones 2, Lego Batman 2, Lego Lord of the Rings. 4 Lego games I bought simply with the goal of platinuming them because I enjoy those games as well. I have Final Fantasy 13 and 13 2. I have wanted to go through all the Final Fantasy titles, and I have been going through them all on stream, and I'm currently up to 12. That should be starting tomorrow as of this recording. And 13, the 13 trilogy, 13, 13 2, and Lightning Returns, are all only available on the PS3. In fact, I could not get a physical copy of Lightning Returns and had to buy that one digitally, even. But 13 and 13 2, I could get physical. In fact, I believe I had to. I'm pretty certain only only Lightning Returns was available digitally, and those two were only available in physical form. Don't quote me on that. I already mentioned Yakuza 3. There's also Space Marine, Assassin's Creed 3, Prototype, and both Infamous titles. Which, both Infamous titles, I also bought as something to platinum, and also because I was interested in them, as I've heard they are very good games. And they are. I enjoyed them thoroughly. I thought they were both quite good. They are definitely they definitely have show some of their age in a positive way, though. I wouldn't. They have not aged bad. They're a relic of their time as a PS3 title, and I like them for that. I was thinking respect, and then I said like. Then I went to say like. Let me just get this working. Hang on a second. Again, not by any means a good a good thing. I thought that might swap over better. Why are you being different? Why are you being difficult? Here we go. This is the next, section of my physical games that I own. You know, plenty more here, 2 of which I had bought just recently because I wanted to. These were, for the PS3, War for Cybertron and Transformers Fall of Cybertron, both Transformers games, which I'm a fan of. And they could only be purchased physically, so I had to find them, and I did. Other titles there are ones that, I like. And not everything there is, of course, ones that I have physical. You can find here Yakuza 0. I bought that physically. I also bought number 7, but only those two. What's happening with my device here? Strange, my phone was just going off at me. I might restart it. My apologies. But yeah, and then other ones here that I have, bought physically. And not everything here is one that, I have or haven't, and, you know, sorry, where was I going with that? Yeah, anyway, there's a bunch of stuff there as well for the PS4 that I have bought physically. Now, that's of course not every game. Some of them I've traded in. I'll get to that as well. I'll talk about that as well. And the final little list is a more recent one, as I started wanting to do more of physical stuff because I was once my opinions definitely sort of started leaning back towards trying to get more physical things, and that is most of my PS5 titles. Not as many. The joke. The PS5 has no games, etc., etc. There's a few PS4 titles there: the Shenmue's, Mass Effect's, Dragon Age, and then more PS5 titles because I've made a concerted effort to get more physically, and yeah, it's less convenient. I won't lie. I won't lie and say that digital downloading a game is certainly very convenient. You sit there, you do it, it takes no time at all. It's done. Right? You just go, you do it, you download, you go away, you come back, bam, there it is. Whereas, getting it physically, you have to either leave, find it, pick it up, or get it delivered. And if you're wanting to do something release day, well, you got to be there right then and there to do so. Sorry, looks like my phone's been a bit odd. It's just going off for me. But yeah, you'd have to be there release day off, or a day later if you'd ordered it for delivery. Assuming that way. But regardless, I started making this push as a personal choice because I wanted to do so because I do prefer it. I think it's better. And hey, I have this thing with a disk drive. And half the reason I got this thing with a disk drive was because I had so much stuff for the PS4 that I still wanted to be able to play. Like, do you mind? Okay. Um, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna mute that because that keeps going off at me. Um, yeah, because I still had stuff for the PS4 that I wanted to play and stuff on disc that I wanted to. And another good reason for a disc drive for this thing it plays Blu-ray, plays standard definition movies. You know what else it plays? 4K. Did not even realize that. I did not know PS5 is a 4K player. I wonder how many people do. I had no idea until I saw someone mention it earlier today. I was shocked. I don't remember anything mentioning it did, and if it did, I just didn't pay attention years ago when this was announced. Can you believe that? Not only did they release a console that is a console, but also a 4K Blu-ray player. That's pretty crazy. They've definitely always done stuff like that. Look at the PS3 I mentioned before. It was a Blu-ray player at a time when Blu-ray was new. And now they're just going to throw all that away, all for the concept of going digital only. The argument for digital only that I have heard many people say as well, sorry, my hair's sticking up a bit, is that is well, because of the size of games. Games are getting huge. I won't lie, yeah, many of them are getting huge, but no one's said they have to be. This is what I said in regards to GTA 6 coming out, when someone was trying to defend the cost of it because it cost $2 billion to make. No one asked Rockstar to spend $2 billion making this game. They spent 200 million, I think, making GTA 5. No one asked them to then spend 2 billion on its sequel. Like, the only people who maybe wanted that are these fucking weirdos who want the game to be a full-blown goddamn life simulator. The type of game, like the ones making fake AI videos, which show the interior of the car as the protagonist is driving it, and where every little thing they do, like when you turn up the game's radio, like you see the character turn the dial on there, or shifting gears, or pressing buttons or shit. The type of people who want the game to have like a realistic body hair growth thing where you actually have to go and shave yourself to keep, otherwise every so often either you get too much arm hair or leg hair or fucking bush hair or something, I don't know. You know. And yeah, hair growth and beard growth in Red Dead 2, I thought it was neat. Neat little feature. You got to go and get, if you want to keep your hairstyle the way it is, you got to go get it shaved. You got to go get it cut every so often. I think it's neat. It's in line with the same thing they had with a similar thing they had in San Andreas, which of course had your body weight thing. If you eat too much junk food, you'll get fat, and by running and exercising, whatever, you'll put on muscle. And there's different benefits to that. If you're more muscly, I believe you have less stamina but more health. No, other way around. You have more stamina but less health. But if you're overweight, you have more health, or you could take more damage but you had no stamina. It was little things like that, and it was just small details, and that's the hair thing. But no one asked for the fucking balls on your horse to contract in the winter in cold climates and relax in hot climates, like they do, of course, in real life. No one asked for that. And that's what I mean. The only people who wanted GTA 6 to cost $2 billion to make are those people who want, like, the same. Again, I mentioned that other thing. I've seen people argue, like, wouldn't it be cool if the car, like, goes and you drive and you have to, like, refuel? No, it wouldn't be fucking cool. You know what sucks about owning a car? Maintenance. Having to go and fill it up, that's annoying. Why would I want to do that in a video game? I am playing a video game as part of escapism. I do not need my video game to be a life simulator. Here is how I experience life. I go out the door. Like, that's why I've never understood life simulators much. It's why I didn't like. It's why I could never get into The Sims. Why would I want a game to simulate life? I already experienced life. Kind of sucks. I don't know. For a video game, the whole point is escapism and experiencing something that isn't real. But again, no one asked Rockstar to make a game that is $2 billion to make, and no one asked them to make a game that's fucking 500 gigabytes in size or more. I don't know how much it's going to be. I don't think they've said, and if they have, I don't remember. And that's where they're arguing, oh, but you can't, you now have to make it digital because it's easier. And I'm not going to go grab the discs, I'm lazy. I did this on stream when I discussed that. It's easy to do. You do multiple discs. Go back 30 years to the PlayStation 1. One of the most, considered by many to be one of the greatest games of all time, if not the best Final Fantasy title, is Final Fantasy VII. So beloved and liked that it has gained a remake trilogy. Its other titles in its lengthy franchise, like Crisis Core, have also gotten a remake. So many things to it. It is one of the most beloved. And you have to play it across 3 discs because of the software at the time. Well, the hardware and software issues at the time. Metal Gear Solid was also played across 2 discs. And other Final Fantasies at the time. 8 was 4 discs. 9 was also 4 discs. There's probably other games at the time which were across multiple discs. And people will bring up the argument, oh, but that was the 90s and early 2000s. This is 2026. It's not okay now. Were people complaining a few years ago when Red Dead Redemption 2 came with 2 discs? A data disc that you first had to use to download a bunch of the data, and then the play disc, which launches which has the rest of the data and allows you to play the game. No, I didn't hear a single complaint. If anything, I heard praise. Oh my god, the game's so big and massive that, like, it requires 2 discs in the modern day. That's insane. That's what people were saying. No one complained. No one said this is annoying. Maybe some people said it's a little inconvenient, but who the fuck cares? So what, you gotta wait a little bit of time for your game to be ready. Is that an issue? The aforementioned Final Fantasy VII Remake, the second game in that series, it also had 2 discs. The Mass Effect Remaster, which is 3 games, it's all 3 Mass Effect games in 1 disc, that also, well, it is 2 discs in that regard. They could have released Mass Effect the Mass Effect Remaster as 3 discs, 1 for each game, but they wanted to include them all in 1 launcher. But because each game's large enough, that meant that it had to be 2 discs, a data disc and a play disc. And I don't have an issue with that. If GTA 6 had to be 3 discs, 2 separate data discs, each marked 1, 2, and then a play disc, I wouldn't have had an issue. And it's not like you can't fit more data on a disc. It's possible. We're getting to this point. I've had people who are, someone I know who's all involved in tech and stuff, talking about how we're very close to having discs that can store loads more data than they can now. This was the sort of jump that happened from the PlayStation 1 to the PS2, where the PS1 required multiple discs for a single Final Fantasy title. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy X didn't. In fact, I can't think of a single game from the PS2 era that required multiple discs. So, yeah, let's keep that in mind. So to argue that, like, you know, they've had to do it because of the size of games, no one's asked for games to be this big. The few people who have are the types of people who like gigantic things, or a lot of them are the often used derogatorily, gun and ball gamer types. I prefer to use a different thing because the gun and ball gamer also is used as a racial aspect negatively, because of the original image, which is of course Patrick sleeping, and it says when a game doesn't have a balls or a gun in it. Um, you'll know the word that I'm not saying. Uh, I prefer the term, like, I prefer to refer to them as people who only play three games. And again, those three games are Call of Duty, FIFA, and GTA. Those are the types defending GTA 6 because, for them, buying a game like that, I don't fucking care. They play GTA 5 for 10 years because all they do is play the online. And then when they're not playing that, they're playing Call of Duty's multiplayer. And when they're not playing that, they're playing FIFA. Um, oh my goodness, what's the word? Not subtract. Um, what is it in math when you have substitute? You can you can substitute FIFA for NBA as well. Like both are I put they're both in the same category. Sport game, you could also say if you want to. I remember in I remember the term that was used in the past. I don't know how well it took off, but it was game theory. Matt Pat used the term bro gamer to refer to those types. You know the types. You all know them. You all went to high school with some of them. They're the types who weren't really gaming types, but they had a PlayStation or an Xbox, and all they did was, again, all they played was Call of Duty and sports games like FIFA, NBA, and GTA. That's all. Because those are man games. Those are male games. Those are man do. None of that. Well, I almost said a bad word. I'm just used to what people called me back then. None of that gay shit that like like an RPG. Maybe they'd play Skyrim. Maybe, but only because Skyrim's also a pretty manly game because you can be a man and racist, and that's manly according to these types. uh, I mean, it's a whole other can of beans. But like you knew these types. They're still around, and I don't want to be mean, but it's hard not to because they're the types who will come out and defend this shit. Because again, they only play a few things ever, and that's all their PlayStation's used for. Beyond that, it's a glorified paperweight because to them, there's nothing for it. They'll only play their shooters and they won't branch out to other things because to them, that's gay. And I'm using this in the way that they would use it. They would use this as a derogatory thing to say. Again, you can argue that you can try and argue. You know the types I'm talking about. You know that's the argument they will use. That's what they will call that. But to get back to the point a bit, because again, I can go off on a tangent. I have a lot of problems with that. It's a whole thing. To get back to the point, all this does is hurt people, removing physical. It also affects the market when it comes to buying and selling games, for example. To use an example, when I talked about Yakuza 3, I mentioned it was pre owned. I used to trade in games a lot. And I remember people would always, there would be certain people would always shit on trading in and pre owned games. It's like a car. When you're done with it, when you want a new car, a lot of people do that. They take their car, they trade it in, they get some cost off their new car. It's exactly what games were. Take a game in that you don't want anymore, and they'd take a bit of cost off a new one you're buying, and then they'd sell the one that you traded in, and they clearly would label it's pre-owned. Someone else had it. So if you buy it and there's issues, well, you technically knew that there was the potential risk of it, but even then you could take it back and 90 times out of 100 they'd be like, oh, okay, and they'd give you another one that was pre-owned or whatever, or they'd take a look at it, see what the issue is, and then refund you because it's a store and that's what they would do because they're not heartless. Well, most they're not heartless, but that goes away now. If you can't do that, like the whole concept of trading in doesn't work. And the whole thing with buying a pre-owned game is it was cheaper, because of course you ran the risk of buying this pre-owned that it might have scratches, it might have problems, and it's the same with a car. When you buy a pre-owned car, you buy it with the knowledge that someone else has previously owned it. It might be a bit old because of that. There might be some problems with components or stuff that might need to get changed. You know that it's had X amount of miles on it, so that where there could be things with it. And you can see all that. You can see all of that on there, and you know that when you buy it. And that's the same buying a pre-owned game. and so it was why it was weird when people would complain about it. I stopped trading in games a few years back because I found myself more likely to want to keep them, even if I felt that I was very unlikely to ever play it. In the off chance, maybe one day I randomly do, like Watch Dogs. I'm probably never going to play Watch Dogs 1, 2, and Legion ever again. I don't care for them that much, but one day maybe I might randomly get the urge to do so and decide, oh, you know what? Well, at least I've got it, so I can go do that. You know, it's a reason to have that because again, I just recently finished Lego Batman, the new Lego Batman. I forget what is it? Legacy of the Dark Knight. I'm probably never going to play it again. I got my platinum for it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I've still got it. Same with all the other Lego games. I still own them because maybe one day I might. Maybe one day I might want to play them. I enjoy Lego games. They're fun. And who knows? I might just randomly decide, you know what? I feel like doing that. Or, I might play it with people. They're co-op. You can do that. You never know. So I found myself more keeping a lot of my stuff. But I used to, buy pre-owned trade-in games all the time, and I've still got no issue with it. And now you won't be able to. Not only that, but sharing games will not exist. Remember when Xbox announced the Xbox One, and they famously mentioned that there would be no method for sharing games, and so Sony, in a response, did a video showing how you could share games, and they said step one, it was like picked it up. Step two, hand it to someone else. Done. That video is still out there. People have been posting it recently because of this in response to make fun of them for this change, because now sharing of games won't be possible. And sharing games is fine. Giving away games is fun. I talked about a sunken cost of taking your money and throwing it into a pit earlier in regards to them making a game no longer accessible. And while yes, it sucks to of course lose money, it's very bad. There's a difference between losing it completely in that in regards to buying something and no longer having access to it and giving it away. As an example, when I was done with Death Stranding, and I got which is one of my favorite games I've ever played, and I got the PS5. I bought the director's cut of Death Stranding for the PS5. I loved the game that much. I knew there was extra content. I wanted to play it again. I wanted to platinum it again. And I did that. And my old copy for the PS4 that I didn't need anymore, I gave away to a friend of mine because I wanted her to experience this game, which I loved. And guess what? She's a fan. She was pissed that she couldn't play the second game because it's only on PS5. She doesn't have. And do I regret the fact that a game that I bought, I no longer have access to? Not at all. Because I didn't just lose it, I gave it away to someone so they can experience it. A few months back, probably a year ago now, it was when I believe Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War came out. Or it might have been a different one. I don't remember. It was the newest one at the time. It was around the same time as Dragon Age Veilguard. I bought that and Veilguard together at the same time. Now, I bought a physical copy of Black Ops of that Call of Duty for a specific reason. I'm not the biggest Call of Duty fan. I'm not the biggest first-person shooter fan. Some I like. I enjoyed Battlefield. I bought Battlefield 6. Still have my physical copy of it for that reason. But Call of Duty I've never really been a fan of, and I've never touched their multiplayers. Well, I have. I couldn't get into them. They're not my kind of game. But I've enjoyed playing their. I've had fun playing their campaigns, and I've had fun streaming their campaigns. I've streamed quite a few of them, and for that reason, I bought it to do so. But I bought it physically because then I could give it to someone who might want it, which I did. I gave it to my friend, the Quantum Log. He did not have it, and I knew he would play it. He would actually play it with people and he'd have fun with it, so I gave it away to him. Now, in the same regard as to what I said, money I spent on a game, I spent money on this game that I no longer have access to. Do I regret it? No. Because it's not like the game's gone. I gave it to somebody else. They now have access to it and they can play it. I do not regret that in any way, and nor do I feel bad about it, because giving something away, giving something as a gift, it feels good. There's a reason why people talk about the giving season and shit, and talk about all that crap, because to give someone something as a gift feels good. It feels good to receive, and it feels good to give. right? And why do you think Steam has whole aspects of giving games, which something that PlayStation does not, which doesn't help for that? You can't give away something you own. I don't know if you can give away games you've purchased to someone, but you definitely can buy games for people on Steam. I could go on there right now, purchase something as a gift for someone I know who I am friends with on Steam. You can do that. Of course, you cannot do this on PlayStation. So, if we remove physical discs, we remove any form of it, this also goes away. This idea of giving someone a gift or giving someone a game that you're done with. You can't do it. And that's where it feels like pure greed. Because sharing games around is not an uncommon thing. I did it with my own dad. Oh, my stepdad. When he got a PlayStation 4, because I bought a game for him to play, and at first I was like he could just use my PS4, I was fine with, but he thought he bought his own one to play on, so he didn't have to borrow mine. And when I was done with a few things, I gave them to him. I gave him GTA 5. I gave him Red Dead 2, because I'm like I'm probably not gonna touch them. He might enjoy them. He can have them. And again, I don't feel bad about giving those away because it's not a problem for me. I didn't in any way regret it because even though I no longer have access to them when I paid for them, I gave them away. And yeah, and you won't again. Like I said, I'm now talking in circles. This I do. This happens to me a lot. I can hear my cat waking up. Yeah, I mean my stepdad. Yeah, and so he's able to play them and appreciate them, and without having to pay extra. Where if we don't have that, all that would happen is if he wants to play something, he has now no choice but to buy it. Say he even wants to try it. You might be interested in a game, but you don't know if you want to play it. But a friend of yours has it. So you're like, hey, can I borrow it for a minute and give it a try and then see what I think? They're like, yeah, sure. And then they might give it to you for a week. You play it for a bit, see what you think of it, and then you're like, oh man, I enjoy this. You give it back and you're like, I really enjoy that. I'm gonna go buy it for myself, and then you buy it for yourself. Guess what? Can't now. You want to experience the game? You got to pay for it. You don't like it? Fuck you. You now own it and you have no choice. Deal with it. Live with the consequences. It's happened to me. I bought a game digitally, don't like it. I have no choice, but I'm stuck with it. And I regret it. I regret that I bought it physically because that I bought it digitally. Because if I had it physically, I could go and I could get rid of it, or I could give it away to someone who might appreciate it. Instead, I'm stuck with it. I won't say what game because I don't want to slander anything. I'm trying not to slander games too much. I mean, I'm slandering Rockstar because this is half their fault. They are definitely at fault for a lot of this, um, and Ubisoft. But yeah, it's yeah, you can't do that. What was it I was thinking of? I had a thought back there that I wanted to bring up. Oh yeah, when it comes to physical games as well as gifts, like it's going to be really hard. Think about it as well. Like think of well, I mentioned the giving season, Christmas and birthdays, for example. How are you going to give gifts as a game for birthdays now or Christmas? Christmas time was a big time where you get games. I definitely got games for Christmas time. I got games for my birthday when I was younger, back in the PS2 and even PS3 and 360 eras. It was more 360 era, or even PS4 era. When I was younger. Um, Till I was older, and most of my times my gift for birthday might just be here's money, go buy you what you want. But I definitely remember getting games, and it was fun. You'd open a gift, and it's like, oh my god, a game that I wanted. Oh wow, that's so much fun. You know, what are you gonna do now? Here's a gift card. Go download it yourself, or unless you've got a parent who's tech savvy, which I doubt any of them are, they're going to be like, hey, go downstairs and turn on your PS5 and see what's there. And you turn it on, it's like, oh my god, you went and you downloaded a game I wanted on there. It's not going to have the same feel, is it? I have so many good memories when it comes to physical games. I have one when it comes to Fallout 3, which is really funny. And I'll tell that story. Back in the day, this was back for the 360. Fallout 3 had been out for a while, I think, a few years probably, and I really wanted to try it. I'd heard people say it was good, and I knew it was by Bethesda, and I liked Skyrim, I liked Oblivion, so I wanted to play it. And I went and I got it, and I was out shopping with my mum. At this point, I was probably 13 or 14. Yes, I was too young. Everyone and their uncle has played games when they were too young, when they were under the age where it's of what is recommended. What are you going to do? But I remember like I was so excited to play it, and what my mum would do because she knew I would do this is we usually go and I if because she'd have to do shopping as well, and she'd go and we'd pick up my game first because the games always had their instruction booklets that I would read. Because the instruction booklets would always wasn't just instructions for the game; it was other details as well. Sometimes a little backstory, sometimes a little bonus stuff. And I remember for the Fallout 3 one, I was reading it while she was doing shopping. I'd wait outside a store or whatever by the trolley and just read through it. And I remember it wasn't just like LT makes you aim, and RT makes you do this, and A would make you do. It was like it gave a little background on the Fallout universe by this point. Like after Bethesda had bought it, how humanity became like sort of culturally stagnant after the 50s, and our timeline branched off after World War II in that regard. And in this universe, you know, culture stayed more significant to the 50s, but they gained atomic power and robots and all this stuff, and then the bombs fell. How you're in Vault 101, one of the last vaults or whatever. It included all the details about what special is, all the other stats like heavy guns, explosives, science, all that, and told you what each of them did. It included every perk in the game and told you what level they were, what they did, what stats you needed. So basically, in this time of reading this, I had worked out the entire build I wanted to make for this game. And again, you can argue, oh, it's a Fallout game, it's a Bethesda RPG, builds don't exist, and yes, 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 yes. But that's not the point. The point is that I had this really fun experience with a physical copy of a game that no longer can exist because games did away with instruction booklets in the PS4 era, and they're now doing away with physical as a whole. And this really nice situation, this nice story, means nothing now in that regard. And again, they used to include so many things in instruction booklets. I remember the Assassin's Creed instruction book included little. It was written in the perspective as if Abstergo was a real company, and as if it was like a booklet telling you how the Animus worked, as if it was a real device. The Assassin's Creed 2 one was so much fun because it included written in it little notes by Lucy and I believe also by Rebecca about the Animus and little random bits, like as if it's real. Like I remember it mentioning in there about how not being able to swim in the first game, it says that was a glitch in the Animus's system, which the Animus 2.0 has fixed. Of course, it wasn't. In reality, it's not a glitch in the game. It's just a gameplay feature. And in 2, because you have more of an open area to swim with Venice and Forley, they decided to include swimming as a mechanic, and they just wrote in a in-universe lore reason. They had no reason to do it, it didn't matter, but they did it because they wanted to, and it made it interesting. Old school games from back in the 90s to be beyond that, like they used to include details of the universe or stories or that they couldn't of course tell in the game because of limited space and all that like might be a little prologue or an explanation. I remember people talking about StarCraft, the original one for that. It included like the setting and explained how they ended up where they are, and that doesn't exist. And of course, you could argue, well, you don't need to anymore because modern games you can fit all those details into a story. And it's like, yeah, you maybe can, but that doesn't detract from the memories of that, and doesn't take away from the fact that you're getting less stuff there. And in regards to as well physical editions, there used to be so much stuff you could get when it came to pre-ordering. To go back to GTA as the example, you spend $120 to pre-order a digital game for GTA. No matter what you do, it's digital. You cannot like even if you buy a physical copy, it is an empty case with a code in it. All right. And what do you get for pre-ordering this? What do you get from this standard pre-order? You get the game, you get a Vice City pack, you get that 1 month of GTA Plus, which looks like some bullshit, and I think there's a fourth thing I don't remember. That's my ring finger. I'm doing four fingers. That was the fourth one. Um, what do you get from the $30 more Ultimate Edition? The big expensive fancy edition that all these games have. Well, you get shit that should be in the main game. You get extra content for the activities for the characters that should be in the main game that shouldn't be behind an extra paywall. You get 4 extra stores that shouldn't be behind a paywall, and I believe that's about it. That's what you get. GTA 5's fancy physical edition that existed came with shit, and arguably, when I say shit, I mean stuff. All right. I got a I'll be honest, I had pre-ordered in the past because I was excited when I was younger. Once I started being able to buy games as they were coming out, I got a bit excited as a kid, and then I became jaded and stopped doing that after a while. But I remember I did this for Assassin's Creed 3. It included a statue of the protagonist Connor. Was the quality amazing? No, of course not, but it wasn't bad quality, from memory at least. They had the same one for Assassin's Creed 4, but it was of the protagonist and that Edward. Both were quite nice. The Edward one I thought was even nicer. If I recall, I believe it was him meant to be hanging, well, not hanging from, but like holding onto the mast of a ship. They both came with boxes, and I stored my games in them as well. The last time I pre ordered anything that came with fancy physical stuff was for Death Stranding 2. That was because I loved the first game so much and I wanted to for this. And that was, of course, and that was, and it came with, I'm looking at it right here, it came with the statue of the DHV Magellan, and it is a nice little statue. And it came with a little keychain thing of Dollman. I love Dollman. Dollman's great. And I did this, and it has a box, and I kept the box. The box is very nice, and I did this because I liked it. But I had one problem with it. There's no disc. It was a code. No steelbook. Nothing. Compare that to one of the last things Kojima did, Metal Gear Solid 5, which until Death Stranding 2 was the last thing I had ever pre-ordered that came with physical stuff. Because by that point I just stopped. There was a lot of reasons. I had problems going on. That came with a box, again, that everything came in. Came with a steelbook for the game. It came with a disc of bonus features, which was about the making of the games and behind the scenes stuff. It came with a little emblem thing of Diamond Dogs, and it came with Big Boss's prosthetic arm, or Venom Snake, I guess. People get all uppity about it. It came with his prosthetic arm. That's a hard one to say all of a sudden. Prosthetic arm. And it's posable. The fingers move, the wrist moves. You can do a lot with it. I currently have it holding the emblem because I think it looks good. I like the look of him, imagining him holding the Diamond Dogs emblem. But I've had it doing a peace sign because it spells V, and peace is a big thing in the games, and you can do all sorts of stuff with it. It's not, and yeah, it looks nice. And the box, in that box that it came in, I keep all the Metal Gear Solids that I have. The only one that's not in there is Delta, because I can't fit it. I probably could maybe if I move some stuff. I've even got Rising in there, and yeah, Rising isn't canon, but I keep it in there because hey, I like the idea of keeping them all in there, and it's neat, and that's doesn't exist. I can't think of the last time a game released with extra shit if you bought it physically, and that's just going to go away now. Again, and again, it's so weird to mention. It's so weird because when I think of recent examples of games having physical stuff, I only immediately think of negatives. I think about Fallout 76. That immediately comes to mind, you know. And that one was really bad with the bag and all that. And yeah, there's bad ones and there's good ones. I mentioned some good ones that I've experienced. I remember one of the funniest ones I learned of was for was for Resident Evil 6. They were tablet cases. Uh, and because in the game, to heal, you use tablets. And by tablets, I mean medicine tablets. This wasn't like tablets as in like electronic device tablet. There we go, electronic device tablet like this. It's not like a case for that. No, it's literally a pill case. But there was four of them, I think one for each of the campaigns. And it's a very, very weird thing to include, but god damn it, do I want them. I really wish I could find them. I haven't looked because I don't care that much, but if I wanted, part of me would love them because Resident Evil 6 is such a game. It is a game of all time. It's not good. Boy, did I have fun when I streamed it though with a friend of mine. But again, even a bad game when played with friends is fun because you're playing with friends. It doesn't make it good. Like Resident Evil 6 sucks. But did I have fun streaming with a friend? Yes. But again, that's the point. But my point is like they've been all over the place with when it comes to like the stuff you'd get when you did a pre-order, but it was always a nice bonus. It was nice to have that. But now, as we're in this digital only era, as we're heading towards that, the bonuses you get for your pre orders, which used to be physical, tangible objects, even if it was just something to put on display, and you'd only get them if you were a die-hard fan of them. I only got that Death Stranding one because I loved the first game so much. I wouldn't have done that if I hated it. I only have the Metal Gear Solid one because again, I like the Metal Gear Solid games. They're over there. That's why I'm pointing that way. I wouldn't do that if I didn't like them, obviously. But now it's just like, here's a skin for your gun, whatever, go have fun with it. And that's it. Or here's key important stuff that should just be in the game, but we've taken them out and locked them behind a extra $30 paywall for no reason other than we need to make back our $2 billion we spent on this game no one asked us to spend $2 billion on. Yeah. It ultimately, in the end of the day, is bad. Because to circle back to the initial point, because we have gone off on a tangent in a lot of things. The reason this is ultimately bad is because of what I said at the start. The same day they announced this, they announced they're shutting down the online store for the PS3. So what happens 20 years from now? Does the PS5's online store get shut down as well? Meaning that any game from the PS4 or PS5 era is not available at all. Unless they make them backwards compatible, which I don't expect them to. Remember, they almost didn't make the PS5 backwards compatible. They only did towards the last minute. They almost didn't. So don't expect them to. What are they going to do? And then what happens once they shut it down? Games don't exist anymore. Anything for that is gone. Unless it's available on their new thing. Again, everything that is available on the PS3's digital store is soon going to not exist. Unless you own it. And unless you have it downloaded, even. I'm not entirely certain, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's another deal where you not only have to have it to own it, you have to have it downloaded to still be able to access it once this happens. So if you don't, tough luck. That's what they'll say. In no way will they defend you. And of course, if you've purchased something through the digital store for the PS3, didn't have it downloaded, and now can't download it once the store shuts down, they'll say, "No, that's on you. No way will they reimburse you." And once again, a product that you paid money for, you will no longer have access to when you should. And the only way you could have would be if you own it physically. Some of the arguments I've seen people say as well is that so many games have a day one patch. They shouldn't. You've just let them get away with it and become complacent. The argument is it's a key. Okay, say it is a key. Let's give this scenario. This is the example I use for someone. Say there is a safe in your house. There is something in that safe. And someone takes that safe from you. You no longer have it, but you had the key. So it's yours still. They can't access it without the key. But if they have the key as well, it's not yours. If the disc is just the key, you still own it, because you own the key to access it. And if they then try and take it from you, you can argue, well, no, I have this key, which means that's mine, and I should be able to access it because of this. And how are they going to argue it? They can't. So there's that. And again, you could argue my example is flawed, and it probably is. Most of my examples are. But there's that. And the other biggest biggest argument I've seen people say, and I've seen someone personally I know say this, that doesn't affect me. I haven't bought a game physically in years. Well, it doesn't revolve around you, does it? Maybe you don't, but that doesn't mean others do. Maybe you haven't bought a game physically in years, but that doesn't mean others don't. Plenty of people do. I believe people have said I think it's like 15%. Again, take that number with a grain of salt. I've tried to avoid certain numbers because I don't know 100%. I haven't fact-checked them. Fact-checked, not checked it. Fact-checked them because I just haven't. So yeah, take any numbers like that. But apparently, it seems like 15% of people buy their games physically, and that's of all people who play games. Now, the problem with these numbers when it comes to people who play games is it's a bit difficult because while we do, I think it's like almost half the global population play video games. That's everything from PC to console to mobile games. They're all lumped together. And of course, mobile games very different from PC to console because PC doesn't have physical, console does, mobile games don't. And I'll talk about the PC one as well. Don't worry, we're not done yet. And again, just because you haven't doesn't mean others don't. And there's many reasons why people want to buy physical. Not only is it so that you own it, there's also the cost. It's cheaper in many cases to buy physical than digital. It used to not be, I believe. I believe that was the argument because of the and it was the or you could argue the convenience fee. But when you have more options available, you can make better use of sales. Let's take Australia, for example. All my situations are going to be Australia. Many people have mentioned Walmart or Amazon. We don't have those here. We have Amazon, but fuck Amazon, and I don't care about them. But here in Australia, you have three, potentially four options. There's CEX, but they're all pre-owned stuff, so really it's three main ones for games. EB Games, JB Hi-Fi, and the digital storefront. So if JB has a sale on games, EB might not, and the PlayStation might not. So you have access to one store that might have a sale, and you might be able to get the game cheaper then. Maybe the digital storefront has a sale on, but the other two physical stores don't. So you now have this access to a sale. EB Games has a sale. Famously, the joke used to be they always fucking did. They always had banners up for it. I haven't seen those in years. They might. The other two don't. So you can get a physical game for cheaper than you could digitally, and the other store doesn't have it. Or the other store has it, but it's not on sale. That is the reason why. But if you only have the one place, the console, that sells it, you suddenly don't have an option for anywhere else. Now, the argument is that, oh, stores will still exist, but will they? Because what's the point of buying the game from a store if all you get is an empty case with a digital code? I have never understood that. Bethesda did it with Fallout 76, and Rockstar are doing it with GTA 6 as well. Those cases are empty. Why are you selling them then? There's no point. You may as well buy it on there. All you're doing is creating plastic waste. The argument might be, oh, you want to have it on display, but if you want it on display, I'd at least want it to have something in there. And also, who's going to display Fallout 76? People hate that game. Yeah, it's got people who play it, but for the most part, the game hasn't done well. People, I mean, it did so bad the very next year, Bethesda had to announce Elder Scrolls 6, and guess what? Nothing's happening with that either. So, by making it one place to purchase, you're really limiting people's stuff. And if we go back to, PC gaming, because one of the other arguments people have made is that, PC isn't physical. It's not. But on PC gaming, there are many, many other methods you can do. There are ways to copy it onto physical formats. I don't necessarily know all that. I'm not computer literate in that regard, but people have spoken that it is. There are ways to take a game and share it still. And if we look at the two biggest companies when it comes to purchasing games on PC, Steam, owned by Valve, and GOG, which I believe is owned by CD Projekt Red, at least members, or at least it was founded by people who did. They are some of the most consumer-first companies I have seen. That is why most people will not criticize them as much. Steam's getting some criticism because they have started to fold and change certain things, but that is a more modern thing, and it is a problem as well when it comes to but most of that comes from outside stuff. Like they started to fold, similar to what happened with other companies when it came with other ones selling stuff when it came to the to things like Visa and Mastercard. What are they called? Payment operators. Basically saying we don't want people using our things to buy certain types of games, which is stupid. I don't even know why payment operators exist. It's kind of a weird thing when you think about it. My money's in X bank, but if I want to use it, I have to then use a different company's thing. It's really weird when you think about it. Visa and MasterCard. That's the biggest thing that has sort of really been a negative thing to Valve, but more so, well, yeah, to Valve with Steam, but more so than that, GOG are like are really, they probably have put the most effort in to trying to conserve games and make sure that you, a consumer, get the best quality and best product at a good cost. It's a bit of a meme about Valve, how they act when how like them sending armed soldiers to go and get someone who maybe has hacked your account, but it's a meme for a reason. It's a meme because they do really strongly like put a consumer first to protect them. Let's compare that to Sony. How many times has Sony been hacked? A lot. Quite a few. I can think of at least three. How many times has the Sony servers been down? If they're down, are you going to be able to play your games that you've owned, that you bought digitally? No. And now they're forcing you to do that. And if Sony tries claiming they're hack proof, all that does is make hackers go and crack it. Anytime anything has been claimed that they can't be hacked, that just sets off an alarm bell of ooh, a challenge. Time to go deal with that. It happened to Discord when it came to when they introduced digital IDs. They said no one would be able to access them within 24 hours. People had hacked into that. It happened. It happened. I believe with the census in Australia, they claimed that they wouldn't be able when it was all online. They claimed it wouldn't be able to be accessed. It was accessed because again, all that does is it acts as a challenge to them to do so. Admittedly, nothing is hack proof, I believe, and yeah, and all that trying to claim that it is isn't. And I could go on. I believe Discord has more than once as well. The UK did a thing recently. Theirs also got hacked. This was also to do with digital ID stuff. The point is, whenever they try and claim, oh, no one can, they're going to try simply to prove a point. Oh, you claimed it can't? Well, guess what? I'm gonna crack my knuckles and now go full on. Who was in that movie Hackers? I don't remember. I've actually never seen it. I think it was Angelina Jolie. I believe it was. Anyway, point is that I don't trust Sony to not get hacked and to not have stuff. And all it takes is what could take is one person maybe like doing something, hacking your account, doing anything with your details or something going wrong, and you lose access to everything you've purchased. You can't get it back. At least a physical copy of a game. If you lose your Sony account, you can make a new one, and you've still got the games to play. But if it's digital, you don't. All of this is sort of why I have made a much more personal choice in recent years. Recent year, it's like 2 years really, to try to get more stuff physically. It is a little more difficult. I won't lie. Buying a game digitally is super convenient. It takes 2 minutes, if that. You go in, you search it up, you click it, you click the thing, you put your stuff, your details in, you put it or whatever, and then you hit done, and then boom, bang, bang, you just wait for it to download. Takes no time at all. Whereas physically, of course, like I said, you got to go to the place to get it, or get it delivered by mail, and good luck trusting Australia Post to do anything on a timely manner. Boy. But yeah. It ultimately is a very greedy thing. It's trying to control the market as a whole because they've already brought in floating scale of prices where you might look at it one day it's this much, you might look at it the next day it's a different amount, and that literally is for the individual towards the individual. Two people could look at the same game at the same time and it might cost more for one and less for the other. They've already talked about doing that. You already are paying a stupid amount for a shitty subscription service. I've cancelled my PlayStation Plus. Technically, it won't be cancelled until January, but that's my response. I am not keeping it. I find no reason for it. I had already planned to cut back the PlayStation Plus Extra to just the standard. If you don't know what the tiers are for PlayStation Plus, there's three. Standard is lets you get the 3 monthly free games and play online. Extra also gives you access to the game catalog, and then Deluxe gives you access to the classics catalog, which are older titles. The games in the game catalog kind of aren't all that worth it. Most of it's stuff I either already own, or it's games that just aren't very good. Like they just never did well. I can't think of a single thing released in the game catalog that interest me or that I have played. Like there's not one. And if there is one that was good, again, I already owned it most likely. And in the classics catalog, I don't have because that's part of that. I only had the extra. I never bothered with the full one, and I would already plan to scale it back because there was nothing in that I cared for. Now I'm just full on canceling it because I paid for 12 months. I've got to wait till January, but I refuse to renew it until they reverse their decision. And if they never reverse their decision, then that means I am never renewing it. Does this mean I will never be able to play a game multiplayer? Yes. Do I care? No. I don't play many games multiplayer to begin with. At the moment, the only game multiplayer that I have been playing is Battlefield 6, and I haven't played that. Was it 6 or was it 5? No, it's 6. I couldn't remember the number. It's Battlefield 6, and in fact, even that I haven't played in a couple of months because I burnt myself out on it playing it as much as I did. I had a great time with it. I had a lot of fun. I nothing it won't take away from that, but I had just sort of been over it anyway, and I don't care. This is a personal choice. If people don't want to, that's fine. I'm not going to tell people to. I'm going to encourage people to send a message. But I also wonder how many people who have said they are or are claiming to are actually going to stick with it. I hope they are because it's the only way to really make a point. But some people do, some people don't. At the same time, I can't criticize people who don't because it is very hard to take a stance because it can negatively affect your own mental health because it cuts out things you enjoy. I remember someone saying that there's only so many stances they can take because if they were to take a stance against everything, they would have nothing left that brings them joy. And I can understand that as well. If you enjoy playing games multiplayer, then keep it because that's something you enjoy and get pleasure from and you should stick with that. I have no reason for it, so I don't have a problem doing that as my form of protest or boycott or whatever you call it. I've already boycotted two other games. Three. I forget that GTA 6 I boycotted. Well, it's more that I think of Kiwami 3 and GTA 6. I don't think about the Assassin's Creed 4 remake as much. But, yeah. So that is that. Uh, to act as a conclusion, because this has gone on for a bit, and I have waffled on about stuff, and I could sit here for a while and keep going. I could probably find another point that I've missed. I could probably make another argument, but all comes back to the same thing that it ultimately is just a consumer control thing that hurts you. It means that they control what you play. If they want to decide you don't get to play this game anymore because they decide they want to cancel it or remove it, you can't access it. This has already happened with a number of games. You cannot find the Deadpool game on the online store because it is gone. You have to find a physical copy of it. You cannot do that for Marvel Ultimate Alliance because of the same deal. The people who had it didn't renew their little thingy, so it is gone from online stores. You have to find a physical copy secondhand, and if you cannot, then you have no way of playing it other than perhaps piracy. And they get all up in arms about piracy, but at the same time, they almost create the piracy they're against by doing shit like this. Because at this point, I will not criticize anybody if they wanted to pirate GTA 6 and not pay for it, because honestly, it is a load of absolute bollocks that they are charging that much for it. And I'm also talking from an Australian perspective. Games are far more expensive here in Australia. I think it's like almost double the cost in some cases. Like it's always been upwards of $20 more, if not more sometimes. And they always were later here. Where the arse end of the world is what I refer to it. It's almost the forgotten about place, and it's shit. It's really, really shitty to be into anything, really. You don't even want to know how bad it is getting these fucking things. Some of these things been out for months before they finally arrived in Australia. I've seen people online had them for ages. I'm pointing at the Transformers behind me. Literally one only arrived this month, and people had it 3 months ago. in America. Like, it just takes that long for some things to get here. Um, yeah. And of course, if it's digital, you then have to pay by digital prices. You can't go to another store when there's a sale. You're forced to deal with their sale. Some people have argued PlayStation has a sale every week. Maybe it's only 15% off of the full price. The price never goes down. It's more expensive a lot of the time to buy it digital than physical anyway, which is stupid. Um, yeah, I mean, I used to view it. I guess you could view it as the convenience fee, but either way, it's not enough. And in some cases, like you get more of a sale if you have PlayStation Plus. Cool. So scam on top of scam, because that's almost what PlayStation Plus is. It's a scam. Thank you, Microsoft. It is half Xbox's fault for introducing Xbox Plus. Was it Xbox Plus? No. What was it called? Gold? I think it was Gold. Oh man, what was it called on Xbox? Their thing, their subscription you had to pay money for online, which now, of course, PlayStation then copied it, Nintendo have now copied it. Everyone does it. It's extra money. It's a scam. Bullshit. Imagine if Steam made you pay a subscription to play online. Imagine that. I think there'd be absolute uproar if that happened. Um, yeah. The final point I wanted to make as well, it came to me while I was talking about this. When it comes to this, I remember back for the Xbox 3 One when they announced that it was going to be always online. Now, at the time, this was shocking, of course. And nowadays, you could get away with it a bit more. But even for me back then, that was an issue. I didn't always have my Xbox connected to the online. I wasn't always able to. And internet is different for everywhere. Some people maybe don't have internet good enough to download a game. Or if it does, it might take ages. They might not have the money. They might have the money to have a console. It might be something they bought one year when they could. They had the money for it. But in the budget for for living, internet isn't something they have enough to spend for to have something high powered enough for downloads or uploads. And so they might not be able to. But they might want to play a game, just buy a game for single player, but now they're forced to have to deal with the internet. And unless the internet's good enough, they won't. And there are places still where people don't have fast internet. And it's not like I'm talking about undeveloped countries. Even in developed countries, there's people here in Australia who don't. You know, I didn't for years back when I was younger. We were dealing with really slow internet when I was a kid. It's only once I became more of a teenager that we had better stuff. Like, and even in America, I imagine America especially so. There's definitely places where people don't have high speed internet or anything because they can't afford it and they don't need it. But they might have a console because they had it for that. But now what are they going to do? They're going to have to buy high speed internet for that. It's turning something that used to be an affordable enjoyment, relatively affordable, into almost an expensive luxury, which is happening to a lot of stuff. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And again, there is multiple reasons why this has happened. Most of it does come down to a greed thing. I am not trying to be full capitalist bad, dark comrade, revolution, communist, yeah, yeah. I guess Marx was German. He's Prussian even. Um, but I'm not trying to be like that. But it is true that there is so much of it that is like that. Trying to force everything onto one purchase method through them is a control and greed thing. They can control the market for how they sell their games and for how much because it's all on there. Similar, the whole cost of RAM going up, that's because the companies making them can sell them at exorbitant amounts because their biggest customers have government funding, and so they're selling to them, and so they could sell them at a high cost, and then normal everyday people or small companies had to then sell the products they're using with it much more. That's why the PlayStation's gone up. That's why the Xbox has gone up. That's why the Steam machine costs so much. That's not that they want. Well, in Valve's case, they didn't. They probably didn't want the Steam machine to cost that much. They had no choice. I'll even throw a bit of a bone to Xbox and Microsoft. Xbox and Microsoft, same people. Xbox and PlayStation. They probably didn't want to have to cause their consoles to go up in price, but they had no choice with the RAM thing. But you know what they did have a choice with? They had a choice to make this decision to only go digital, and they made it, and they are wrong. It is bad, and it will only hurt them in the long run. That is the main positive to take out of this. The amount of backlash is good. And it is coming from so many places. It's not just people. There are other companies that make games for Sony. That make games and are published then, and on console, who aren't happy. It seems to be that none of them knew about this. There are indie companies talking about it. They, of course, definitely wouldn't know. You expect Sony to go and tell them? Of course not. But it seems that even other bigger AAA companies might not have known. It's looking like they found out at the same time as everyone else. And if they perhaps fight back as well and also push back as well as the consumer, it might change. It's hard to argue. Some people like to use the argument that the consumer has no control, that that a company will force you to decide on this because they can force it in, and you will eventually have no choice but to accept it because they're forcing it on you. But I disagree. I believe that the consumer does have a control over the company. If they refuse to buy something, they are forced to change. It's only when you continue to accept it that they keep doing it. But if you push back, if you say no, they will have no choice but to change it. Again, they tried to shut down the PS3 store around the time the PS5 was released. There was enough pushback that they changed their mind. They decided to instead roll back their plans. They made it harder, yes, but they kept it there and kept an option available. Now they're deleting it. So you do have some control. If you make enough noise, if you make it clear enough that you don't agree with it, and this is where the canceling of a PlayStation Plus thing works. If you affect them in a way that affects their stocks, that makes their revenue go down, that makes the shareholders panic. And then they yell at the people in charge and say, fix this. Whatever you said you were doing isn't good. Fix it. And unless it's a complete sunken cost fallacy, they will. And at this point, it hasn't reached that. You can see it with other companies when things happen. AI is a big one, and one of the reasons they keep pushing it is it's because it's a sunken cost. They don't want to admit that it ain't working and that people don't like it and it is a mistake because they put so much money into it that now that it would be embarrassing to change their mind and say, nope, this was bad. But they haven't reached that point yet with Sony. It's possible to change. No announcement of a new console has happened. We don't know if there is. It probably will happen soon, and that's probably what they're trying to gear everyone up for. And if they do, at this point, it is going to be a disaster for them. Because this is also a Sony issue. Microsoft have also announced that they will also likely be going full digital for the future with Xbox. And many people do not trust these companies, especially not Microsoft. Look at what they've done. How many companies have they shut down that they bought? They bought so many companies and then basically took them out like old Yeller and put a slug in the back of their head. Why would they buy all these companies for the simple purpose of doing this? And Microsoft did the very same thing as Sony did with this when they did that. Remember when Microsoft announced they need more games like Hi-Fi Rush? The same day they shut down the company that made Hi-Fi Rush. It's a similar thing. I don't know whether it's tone deafness, a purposeful fuck you, or just them being absolute imbeciles. It might be a bit of all three. This was a mistake. Sony have gone silent, and if you go and look at the responses, almost everyone is against it. And that is a good thing. Because unlike other things where sometimes you'll have a fair amount of people who come to the defense for some reason, more and more people in this case are against it. Now, why did I do this? Why did I sit down and ramble for almost 2 hours basically about this reason? Because for me, video games are important. They have been for a long time. I never really had. I had a lot of issues in my life, and video games was always something that I enjoyed, and I've had them my whole life. Like a lot of people my age, I basically have grown up with them. As I mentioned around the start, my dad had a PlayStation 1, and I have fond memories of playing Simpsons Wrestling and those Green Army Men games with him. I remember when I got a PlayStation 2 and I would play all sorts of games on them. I loved playing the Lego Star Wars and the other like Lego games. I remember playing the crap out of Madagascar. I loved that game. Most of the games I played back then were tie-ins because I was still young. I remember when going over to Xbox because I wanted to play more mature adult games because so many of the people, like other kids I knew were, and playing Assassin's Creed and all that, and Skyrim and Oblivion, getting into those types of things. I remember when I was able to. I remember the first time I was able to buy games without having to be with my parent, without having to have a parent with me because I reached the right age, and and now after years of playing games and people seeing how much I did and enjoyed it, I had friends encourage me to do streaming because they said how they saw how I can I can play something with them watching and talk about it and discuss it. I had family even encourage me to do it, and it's a big part of my life in a way. It's important to me. I do it for fun. It's made me friends. I've met people through it, and yeah. And was my reaction where I was very upset potentially odd? Yes, I am very sensitive about things. It's a mental health issue that I have. I'm not getting into it. I've talked about it in streams before what I suffer from, but I'm not going to mention it for this. Um, Look around, you can sort of guess what I probably have. I'm wearing a Pink Floyd shirt after all. It's great. Dark Side of Your Mum. That's what it says. Uh, yeah. So for me, seeing this is really sad because, as I said, I have so many fond memories that not just involve video games, but involve, you know, physical collections, like going and talking to the people at the store about the games I'm buying, asking for suggestions, stories of like reading the reading the instruction guides on the way home, getting physical things with like goodies with them when I was pre-ordering stuff, you know, just anything, giving games away, receiving them as a gift for like birthdays or Christmas, and all that would be gone. The memories will still remain, but no one else in the future would get those. And that's kind of a shame. Yeah, it really is. It's a weird thing to mention, and it's just it's more than anything, to use a term parents would say. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. Well, that's not true. I'm pissed, but I'm very disappointed. It's it's such an unnecessary thing because it isn't needed. And every argument, I could sit here if I could sit here and counter any argument that was made. I countered a few. I tried to. It's hard to. I did unless I have in front of me every single one. I can't because there's so many that people try to make, but every one is so easily countered. All right. And again, if the argument, the biggest one being that games are too big for a disc, most people who play video games, who enjoy video games, who play more than just 3 games a year, aren't going to complain about needing to use more than one disc to play their game. They're not going to because it isn't a problem. Again, 30 years ago we were doing this, and it wasn't an issue then, and it wouldn't be an issue now. The only people who would complain are your big old, well, to use a term that people sometimes use in things like rivet counting when it comes to people wanting to have historical accurate things, your pixel counters, the guys who argue that you can't see all individual pixels on a character's arm hair. Like, that's ridiculous. You don't need that in a game. They're the only ones who'll complain. That's about all I have to say. I can't think of anything else. I could sit here and literally, like, I could argue about it till the cows come home. I'd keep looping back and repeating what I'm saying. It happens a lot. I I tried my best with this. Like I said, unlike other arguments where I've either done them on stream or like otherwise. I mean, if I did this on stream, it took me nearly 2 hours. I wouldn't have been like if I did this on stream, I probably wouldn't have gotten to what I was getting meant to stream. And unlike the Kwame thing where I had gameplay in the background, for this one, I thought, no, it's better me just sit here, discuss it as it is, looking like shit, and making my voice hoarse. Man, I had a bad voice even beforehand. Like my throat was super dry. But there you go. That's about all I had to say. I'm gonna go upload this now. Spend time with my cat. Be back tomorrow. Like I said, it genuinely killed my mood. It killed any motivation I had to even stream. I was meant to today. But I didn't. Like I had no motivation to touch my console. I did for like a little bit. I played a bit. What I actually did, I played some Thomas and Friends, the Dovetail game, because that's enjoyable. I enjoy that. It's nice and relaxing. I listen to a podcast or music, and it just sort of like I have fun with it. I did that for a little bit before I went out and spent time with some family, because that's sort of what I needed to do. I needed to take a moment and you know get used to it. And what really helped, no, I shouldn't say get used to it because that sounds complacent. I am not being complacent. I am not going to stand for it. What really helped was everyone online, though, who has been so vocal against this. That, more than anything, is probably what made me the proudest and happiest and helped me get past the sadness I felt of this. Is just how many people have heard this and are angry. Even people I know who aren't gamers. A friend of mine who she's barely a gamer. She follows a few things she likes them. She's pissed. I didn't even realize she was mad till I just happened to send something about it. And she's like, and she mentioned she's also angry. Um, but yeah, it is a sad thing. We will see what happens. That is all that I can say. It will hurt It will hurt everybody. That is the sad thing. If they go through with it, as I said, it'll hurt the consumer, as I said, but it will hurt Sony because they may not recover from it. Let's not forget, Xbox announced that the Xbox One would be always online and there would be no method of sharing games. It never recovered. The Xbox One never recovered from that. By the end of its life, before the Series X and S, it had barely managed to recover. One press conference, one day, ruined its reputation forever. And it's still suffering for it. Microsoft have continued to shoot themselves with other things they've done, but a lot of their bad choices and a lot of the negative stuff towards them all goes back to that one day. This might be a similar case. In fact, this is likely a similar case. This probably will negatively affect Sony's future for years to come as a games company. And just like with the Xbox, it was one day, one thing, one announcement. And sadly, it is good that it might affect them because they have to learn. And sometimes the only way for people to learn is to experience a backlash like this and deal with the mistake. It happened to Xbox again. Xbox had to completely change their always online rule. They had to change their sharing games rule. Hell, they eventually had to release the game without Connect after they realized no one wants it. And the console without Connect because they realized no one wants it and it made it more expensive for no reason. And all it took, and sadly, Xbox had to suffer for it. It might be the same case with Sony. It is sad, but that might just be the case. On a lighter note, if I can think of one, um, well, I mean, the lighter note is I'll be doing a new Final Fantasy tomorrow. Yay! Actually, no. The lighter note is this: if you have games from the past, from before you were born, or from years ago that you have never played, this is probably a good time to do so. We're at a very weird point for the future of them. And there are plenty of games from before I was born or from before I was old enough to really play them that I have never touched before that I am interested in and willing to do. There are a lot of old PS2 JRPGs that I have plans to do on stream as part of Weeb Wednesday. I'm doing one right now. That is Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. I had never played a Shin Megami Tensei game aside from the Personas, and that was and only had I started with Persona 3 and then did 5 and then did 4 later. That's the only one I'd ever done. There's a lot of other ones like Wild Arms. There's that one. There's a bunch of other older ones that I've never played. And going back even further, until I started this Final Fantasy Friday series, I hadn't played a Final Fantasy before. Well, before 6. I played 6. That was it. So going back to the very beginning and doing the numbered games in order was super fun and is still super fun. There's so many I hadn't done. I'd only played 6 and 7. No, that isn't a joke. That is just the truth of the numbers. I am not doing the funny numbers. And I had played a bit of 10. It has been so much fun going back through all these old games that are old for me because, well, because it was either that I just wasn't interested or I was too young. Like when Final Fantasy X came out, I was 3. So yeah, when 13 came out, I was probably like maybe 11. I don't remember the exact year it came out. I have to look that up. But point is, like, I was too young to have cared about it. And going back even to the 80s, like, look at Dragon's Quest. There's what I think there's 13 Dragon's Quests. I don't know how many numbered games there are. They just recently did a HD 1.5, 2.5 version of the first three games. I think the third one came first. They've now done the first two. I'm down to do this. Hell, I'd even do the originals if I could find them. I'm sure I could through emulation. But yeah, like if you have games from the past, from before you were born, or that you weren't interested in, or just you were too young for, go and do them. This is a good time for that because there is definitely plenty of stuff from the old days that is really fun that you may even never touch. Again, Final Fantasy, I would definitely recommend those. If you like JRPGs or just any, or if you're interested in trying them, definitely go for some of those older ones. It's not that the new ones are bad by any means. I'm not saying that. It's just that, well, to use Seven's remake or 15 or even 16, they're very different. Because I believe they're not turn based. So yeah, and again, they're all very interesting. You can spend hours on them. You can get lost in the world, and they're really fun. And again, there's so many, so many that I'm interested in from the PS1, PS2 era. Not as much in the PS3 era because I've played most of those, except for like some of the Final Fantasies that I'm planning to. But like older like PS1, PS2 era, so many people have said they are. There's some fantastic titles from there, and I definitely am, and I'm down for that. And yeah, so that's what you can do. If that's what if you're unsure where to go, do that. Try some stuff. Try some new things. Expand your horizon. Play some games you maybe never had. If you've never played JRPGs, give them a try. Yes, I can understand some people aren't into them, especially if you don't like anime. The idea of someone liking JRPGs but not anime is very weird to me because they're very hand in hand. Like there can be moments that are very anime, but I mean, what do you expect? They're from Japan. Um, but give them a try. It's hard to say where a good start is because it differs for everyone. But yeah, try that. Try expanding your horizon with different things. Try a simulator game. Try like well, don't play Hoi 4. That game's that's different. Play CK3. I love CK3. I play it to relax, which is funny to mention. Play a game like XCOM. Try some different things that you never would have before. That's a good thing you can do. That's a positive that I'll end this on. So yeah, if you've watched this, thank you, I guess. Um, like I said, I needed to just get my thoughts out, and I wanted to give my opinion for as someone who games are very important for, and this medium is a whole thing, and someone who cares a lot about more physical preservation, I guess. It is just so weird the way they would even do this. As people pointed out, like physical like books are still around even though ebooks exist. I have fucking manga on my shelf. I have books on my shelf. I have so many books. I've had to buy new bookshelves for my movies and books. Like I have so many because I just love them. I love reading. I like my manga. I love my movies. Um, yeah, movies have been come back. Movies have their own issues with the cost, but that's a whole other thing. You can try to get like there are standard versions that are a little bit expensive still, but it's more like they're really starting to do more of like older, weirder stuff, which is nice. Like I've got some films on my shelf that like from the 70s that are all foreign and shit. They're great. Um, yeah, but that's almost something to mention. Like movies still have physical things, books still do, comics even still do. Take look at music. They still release vinyl. Vinyl came back into fashion because the sound quality's better. It's so weird to keep doing that, but then this one thing they're so dog hard for not just to just get rid of for some reason. Why? Well, we know why. I've said why. But we're not going to be all doom and gloom from here on. Try to be positive. Try to look at the positive side, like I said. There are enough people against it that it might make a difference. And you know what? Try to push for that. Don't give in, don't be complacent about it, and try to stand against it and make it clear that you don't agree with it. Because if you do, then they can and will and have changed their minds. So thank you for watching this. Hope you enjoy. This was, like I said, something I just had to do for myself, partly just get all my thoughts out as best I could. And I will, I guess, see you anytime else. I'm ending this like I would a stream because I don't really have any other idea how to. Bye all.